and there are other organisations doing that, because whilst they're drifting around in the oceans, they're continuously killing wildlife. So in February this year, the Steve Irwin, one of our vessels, set off in search of this fleet called the Fu Guan Yu fleet, and we use drones, our small boat reconnaissance, and we use satellite equipment to locate the fleet. Between when we first saw them in January and then going back to look for them in February and March, we saw a massive effort on their behalf to disguise what they're doing, to hide what they're doing. They moved their fishing grounds by 2,000 nautical miles. They changed their patterns, and they'd systematically switched off the AIS system, which is the satellite beacon that all commercial ships have to have. They systematically switched those off. But in spite of those evasive actions, Sea Shepherd was able to locate them very quickly, and that's something that we pride ourselves on, that no other organisation can do, whether it be governments, navies or anything. We are very, very good at finding fleets of ships out there when we need to. So Captain Sid Chakravarti, who was on the ship there, decided that once we caught these fleet, we only have one ship out there. We can't chase 6 vessels. So we decided to pick on this one, number 76, and the rest of the fleet basically scattered, which on the one hand was great because it meant that they were, while they're running away, they're not able to carry on doing their illegal fishing. And over the next 19 days, we chased this fish from the fishing vessel. We don't chase fish, not normally. We chased this illegal fishing vessel through the North Indian Ocean, through the Malacca Straits, and into the South China Sea, until she finally had to enter a port. You know, they've all got to be refueled, etc. So it entered a port in the Fujian province of China. And during that chase, we documented the spoliation of all their evidence, so chucking nets off and discarding a lot of their gear, some of which we recovered. And we gathered a massive amount of evidence to put to the authorities. When they arrived in the port, we stayed outside the port. We maintained a vigil out there, and what we saw was 2 of the other vessels coming in as well. And once in the port, the 71, the 73 and the 76, all part of this Fu Guan Yu fleet, were investigated by the Chinese authorities, supported by the evidence that Sid and his crew on the Steve Irwin had gathered. And they concluded that these vessels were indeed in contravention of law by using illegal drift nets. They impounded the ships. They also then impounded the other three members of this fleet. And again, I'm going to hand over to one of our captains to let you explain exactly how this does. They do it so much better than I do. And I know it's another video, it's a bit of a cop-out, but you know, they do it very well. So this is Alex Cornelison, who's actually the Chief Executive Officer of Sea Shepherd Global. And he gives a summary in this video of what happened in this campaign and what happened to this Chinese fleet.
During our Operation Icefish 2, our vessel, the Steve Irwin, under the command of Captain Chakravarti, ran into the illegal Chinese drift netting fleet. 2 of the 3 vessels were discovered by the Steve Irwin, and when the Steve Irwin confronted them, they ran off, abandoning their fishing gear. That gear was recovered by the crew of the Steve Irwin, thus taking off hundreds of animals. The 3rd vessel was then discovered and followed all the way back to China, whilst destroying the evidence on board. We just received a message from the Chinese government that the 3 vessels involved have gotten severe punishment. The captains have gotten their license permanently revoked. The vessels have been imposed the highest possible fine of $300,000 each. And all the vessels in the company's fleet have been temporarily suspended from fishing. And the 3 vessels involved are now held up in port indefinitely until further investigation concludes. Of course, this is a fantastic result for Sea Shepherd. With Icefish, we saw that we shut down an illegal fishing fleet of 6 vessels. In 2 years, we were able to take them out completely. And now we see that we've encountered a fleet of illegal drift netters on the high seas. And thanks to the help of the various government institutions like Interpol and the Chinese government, we were able to shut these down. An enormous success for Sea Shepherd.
things to add to what Alex has said there. I mean, he finished off there by saying this is an enormous success for Sea Shepherd, but what this really is an enormous success for the oceans. And the other thing that we pick up from this is it's great to see the support of the Chinese government, because we are all very quick to criticise the Chinese when it comes to animal rights and so on, but we are starting to see across the board a very slow turning towards an understanding of animal rights. And I know there's a very, very long way to go, and I'm not just talking about the oceans and so on, but Chinese illegal fleets, there are many, many of them out in the oceans, and every time we encounter one of these, we are successful in closing them down. So whilst this is a big success for Sea Shepherd, it's more important to understand this is a big success for the oceans. So that gives you, again, an idea of the sort of campaign that we've been running for the last 12 months. In addition to these two campaigns that I've shown you here, Operation Driftnet and Albacore, we've been running campaigns in Japan, Costa Rica, Florida, the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf of California, Senegal, Western Australia, the Faroe Islands, Italy, France, Sao Tome and Principe, the Australian Bight, and others, Germany, Italy, and some of those smaller campaigns. There's no doubt in my mind that Sea Shepherd is by far and away the most active and most successful marine conservation organisation out there. And one of the things that sets us apart from all of the other organisations, and we're very lucky to have this, is our fleet. Sorry, that was the slide that should have come up while I was telling you where else we've been running. I'll just run very quickly through these. These are some of the campaigns of the last 12, 18 months that I've just mentioned there. So on the left here was a campaign that we formed an alliance with several other conservation organisations to stop BP from drilling in the Australian Bight, which is a whale conservation area. Very successful. BP have now pulled out of that. Small campaigns that people don't know about. Operation Virus Hunter is a campaign running in Canada to investigate the harmful effects of the salmon farming industry, harmful on both the oceans and indeed harmful on ourselves. Operation Icefish is the one I mentioned earlier, which is run in the Antarctic to shut down the illegal fishing fleets fishing for the Antarctic toothfish. Operation Henkaku is the new name for the Cove Guardian campaign that's running in Taiji. I'm sure many of you will know about that. If you don't, please come down and talk to us. We've got two people who've been on that campaign on our stand. We've set up a new organisation called Sea Shepherd Dive as well, which is basically an accreditation organisation to accredit diving institutions, diving centres and so on, to make sure that their operations are not harming the oceans and habitats such as coral reef and so on. We've set up a global marine debris campaign. We do beach cleanups, which we invite everybody to come on. You don't have to be a Sea Shepherd volunteer. This weekend we had, I should know, I did the volunteer tour, 6 cleanups around the UK alone. We had Northern Ireland, Wales, Brighton, Exeter, and 2 others that I can't remember. But we're doing these on a regular basis, and they're brilliant. They're a great social event. You come along, we literally scour the beach, picking up every bit of litter, and you will be horrified at what we pick up. To give you an idea, we could fill a bin bag of the little blue sticks that make up your cotton buds. Okay, on every beach clean we pick up thousands of them. So in between the 2 white bits, the blue stick, they are everywhere on a beach. You won't necessarily see them easily, but if you start looking, you'll see them everywhere. Plastic straws, so many plastic straws on beaches, it is incredible. And obviously the usual suspects, the plastic bottles, bottle tops and so on. Again, that's a whole talk in its own right. We've been running a campaign now off the coast of Senegal, very similar to what I've been talking about with Gabon, where we've been assisting the government of Senegal in patrolling the 600 kilometres that make up their coastline, which is one of the most illegally and overfished coastlines in the world. We've run campaigns to protect krill. I mean, as I say, we do everything from the very smallest to the very biggest. So that's just an idea of some of those things. But as I say, the thing that sets us apart is our fleet, or as we now call it, Neptune's Navy. Our fleet is actually bigger than some of the navies of some small countries. Okay, it consists of 9 large ships. You've seen some of them on the videos that I've shown you today. We have helicopter, and we have several small vessels like ribs and fast responsive boats. We have got more vessels, more crew, covering more miles, more campaigns, and saving more marine wildlife than any other marine conservation organisation. And now we have a new weapon in our armoury, which is what I want to introduce to you now. Some of you may have already seen Ocean Warrior. This is the first ship that Sea Shepherd has ever had built for it. So everything else that every other ship that we've had has always been an older ship that has been purchased, in some cases from the Japanese whaling fleet, without them knowing. The Sam Simon is a security vessel from the Japanese whaling fleet. For those of you who don't know who Sam Simon was, he was the co-creator of The Simpsons, and he bought this ship through a number of third parties without the Japanese knowing about it. The first they knew about it was when we turned up in Antarctica with it. I think they were a little bit pissed off. So Ocean Warrior was built in Turkey by a Dutch shipbuilder called Damen, and it was funded by a grant from the Dutch and UK postcode lotteries. It cost just under 10 million euros, and it didn't cost Sea Shepherd a penny. That was all given to us by these postcode lotteries. It is very much a boat with a purpose. Okay, it's 175 foot long. It's capable of doing 30 knots, which makes it the fastest ship we've ever owned. And it's extremely fuel efficient. It's a lean burning ship. It is a real game changer for us. She really does give us a leg up when it comes to confronting the Japanese whaling fleet. The whaling fleet is a very sophisticated fleet. They throw millions and millions and millions of yen at their fleet, probably billions of yen at their fleet, and we have always had trouble keeping up with the harpoon ships. So we've always, those of you who've watched Whale Wars will know that we've always tended to focus very much on shadowing the factory ship, the Nishin Maru, the aim there was to make it impossible for them to land caught whales onto the factory ship. Now, if you're catching minke whale or whatever and you can't land them onto a factory ship, then really you can't go out and kill them. But what we can do with Ocean Warrior is we can now put Ocean Warrior between the harpoons and the whales, so there is no chance of them killing the whales. And let's not forget, over the last 10 years, this will be our 11th Antarctic campaign that we've just set off on. Over the last 10 years, we have saved well over 5,000 whales. And we measure that by the quota that the Japanese go down with. So if they go down to kill 1,000 whales and they only come back with 100, then we have saved 900 whales. You may say, well, hang on a second, that's a bit, is it really you saving us? It's not us saying it, it's the Japanese that say it. They have to report back every year and say why they didn't catch their quota, and without exception, the reason that they give is because of those horrible terrorists from Sea Shepherd. So as I say, she's heading down there. Ocean Warrior is heading down to the Antarctic again. Yet again, the Japanese are flouting the International Whaling Commission's moratorium on commercial whaling by claiming that what they're doing is scientific research. Some of you will know in 2014 that the International Court of Justice in The Hague ruled that categorically what they are doing is not scientific research and is therefore completely illegal under international law. They were also found in contempt of the Australian High Court when they were killing whales in the Australian whale sanctuary. And in spite of this, they're sending their fleet of security ships, harpoon ships, and as I say, the factory ship, the Nishin Maru, down to the Southern Ocean. But we are following. We've just launched a campaign. It's called Operation Nemesis. Sorry, that photo doesn't show up very well. No, that doesn't work. It's our 11th campaign. It's named after the Greek goddess of inescapable justice. And with Ocean Warrior, that's what we've got. There is no escape. It's going to be Ocean Warrior's first campaign, and I'd say her speed really will be the deciding factor when it comes to saving whales. She's going to be teamed up with the Steve Irwin, which is one of the vessels that you saw earlier. And when you combine that with our amazing volunteer crew, all volunteer crew, our small boats, our drones, our surveillance equipment, and most importantly our experience, we are the best chance that the whales of Antarctica have got from being saved from these Japanese harpoons. So as I say, Sea Shepherd is the most active marine conservation organisation on the planet, and it's all done with volunteers. We've got no swanky offices anywhere. We've got no highly paid employees. To give you an example, in the UK we have 1.5 employees, okay, on very modest salaries. Everybody else is a volunteer, myself included, Karma there, Sam, Abby. We're all volunteers. When we go on campaigns, we don't get any recompense at all. We fund ourselves. We pay for our own flights. We pay for our own hotels, etc. What that means is that we're all very passionate about what we do, because we're not doing it for money. We're doing it because we believe in it. Some of our volunteers have risked their lives and their liberty, and we basically, what we're doing is we are doing what others can't or won't do. And there's a good reason we do it. And some of you will know Paul Watson's famous quote, which is this one here: if our oceans die, we die. And that really is, again, that's a whole talk in itself, and I have done a talk simply based on that quote and the threats to the oceans and how the threats to the oceans impact on us as humans. We're looking for new volunteers all the time. If any of you are really interested in what you've seen today, do come down and talk to us. Volunteering is not all about risking your life and your liberty. It really, it could be anything from doing outreach at an event like this to going on a seal campaign in Scotland where you're not risking your life or your liberty, but you're actually saving seals very, very easily. We really do need volunteers. We particularly need new volunteers in this area, the West Midlands. We've got a real shortage of volunteers here. So if any of you do fancy it, why don't you come down and talk to us afterwards. But what I'm going to just show you now is one more quick video, and then I'm going to take some questions. And this video, I think, really sums up what we do and what our volunteers do. That's it. So thank you very much again for coming along. And now, if anyone's got any questions, we've got sort of 10-ish minutes left, 9 or 10 minutes left. I'm happy to answer any questions if I can. Just one thing, I'm not a marine biologist, so if you ask anything really technical, I might just scoot off down there. Yes?
I was just wondering, how do you decide where you focus your work when it's such a widespread problem?
It's a very good question. It's such a good question. I'm not exactly sure what the answer to that is. I mean, you're right, it is a huge problem. I mean, ocean conservation is a massive issue and it's very difficult to target things. Obviously the whaling campaigns have always been there for the last sort of 11 or 12 years. We try and look at what is, first of all, which creatures are most in danger. Okay, so one of the campaigns I haven't talked about here is a campaign we've got running in the Gulf of California to protect the vaquita porpoise, of which there are 80 left. That's a no-brainer. We need to go and do what we can to protect those. Turtles and so on, 6 out of the 7 species are almost extinct. In the case of things like Operation Driftnet, we sort of almost stumbled across that. We were coming back from another campaign and we find this fleet and we decide, yes, okay, that's something we can actually do. We look for, obviously, where we can get successes. Because we have a limited budget, it would be easy to go out and try and do everything and achieve nothing. So we do try and look at where those are. Now, I personally don't get involved in that decision-making process, but that would be the basis on which it's done. Where are we likely to have a a success and be a success that really genuinely means something to the protecting the oceans. So, but you're right. I mean, it's never ending. You know, we could finish off one fleet and another one appears, and you know, it's a never-ending task. So, any more questions? Yes.
Are you legally allowed to sink ships?
We haven't actually sunk any ships for quite some time. The obvious answer is no, not really. I mean, it's not part of our current sort of agenda is to go out there sinking ships. You perhaps saw on one of the videos one of the ships sinking. That was sunk by the crew, not us. Not obviously the first in the black and white picture I showed, that was us. And back in the 70s and 80s and possibly early 90s, and yes, we were very active in doing that. Laws are so much tighter now, punishments are so much harsher, and we have to be realistic and accept that having vessels confiscated and volunteers imprisoned means that they're basically useless when that happens. So, no, it's not legal to sink ships, although if any of you fancy doing it, I strongly recommend it. That's not the official line of sea ship. So we don't, that sort of thing doesn't happen quite so much now as perhaps in the sort of older days of the Wild West in the 70s and 80s that it did happen. So. There are certain things that happen. For example, I could have showed you a fantastic video of us wedging one of our ships between a refueling ship and the factory ship in the Antarctic. I don't know if any of you have seen that footage, where we weren't ramming the ships, but we were stopping the factory whaling ship from being refueled. That stuff is very dangerous stuff, real life risking stuff, borderline illegal, but you are operating in an area where basically the laws don't necessarily apply, so you're in international waters. But in terms of going into harbours and sinking ships, now we don't do that. What we do look to do is to try and work with governments who will do that. So for example, the Indonesian government is now very actively destroying illegal fishing vessels. So they're blowing them up and turning them into artificial reefs for divers to go on and things like that. So we're trying now, I suppose, to be towing the line a little bit more and being less, perhaps, cavalier about it. Any more questions? No?
Right.
Yeah, another one? Yeah, go for it.
Where do you get your crew volunteers from? Because I imagine they're not the average person.
Many of them are the average person, okay? Obviously, there are roles within a ship that require experience, okay? So you can't just go, I went to West Midlands Vegan Fair, I'd like to be a captain. Clearly, it doesn't work like that, and things like bosuns and so on. But many volunteers come from West, from here, just seeing this and going, right, okay, I'd really like to be on a ship. So they might be a good cook, for example. Karma here is an amazing cook and is inevitably going to be the cooks on one of our ships one day. But being taking on a role like a deckhand, for example, there is no skill required other than a willingness to work extremely hard. You know, it's very difficult to do. But I would say the majority of our crew go there without any specific skills. We do a lot of training. So for example, when a ship is in harbour waiting to go on a campaign and the crew has been assigned, then they will spend maybe a month or two doing training, so training with small boats and so on. But obviously if you've got small boat experience, powerboat licenses and so on, then that will stand you in good stead in terms of applying to go on it. But you don't have to have any qualifications to become something like a deckhand or to learn how to do other things under the guise of somebody who has got those qualifications. So anybody can apply for a role on the ships.
Might be worth mentioning, Mark, about Sea Shepherd's stance on veganism and how it affects the ocean.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, those are two totally separate things: Sea Shepherd's stance and veganism in the oceans. I mean, I have done a talk on veganism in the oceans, and it's really fascinating. Clearly, there is a direct link between the conservation of animal products and the oceans. Again, I don't have time to go into that long details, but if we think about the runoff from animal agriculture, for example, in the Gulf of Mexico, is creating massive dead zones which are completely depleted of oxygen and are killing all wildlife there. And fish, the second biggest consumer of fish after human beings is pigs, okay, through agriculture. Now that is just a bizarre concept that you've got something which is not what you would consider naturally an aquatic predator is being fed vast quantities of fish because we want everything to grow quicker so that we can kill it quicker and we can sell it quicker and people can eat it quicker and we can feed the massive sort of desire for these things. Sea Shepherd's stance on veganism is very clear. Sea Shepherd is a marine conservation organisation. To be a volunteer for Sea Shepherd, you don't have to be a vegan, okay? If you go on one of our campaigns and serve on one of our ships, you will only be served vegan food, okay? The vast majority of our volunteers are either vegetarian or vegan. We can't cater for everybody. This isn't a restaurant on a ship and so on. We can only do one type of catering. Therefore, everything, all food associated with anything officially Sea Shepherd is vegan, okay? However, it is not a requirement of Sea Shepherd that you are a vegan to join as a volunteer, and there is no pressure and should never be any pressure on you to become a vegan. However, I will say to you that many, many people I know who have joined Sea Shepherd as either vegetarian or as omnivores have subsequently become either vegetarian or vegan, because it's an educational process. They are learning about the threats to the ocean, and the consumption of fish and meat is obviously a major factor in that. So whilst we don't apply any pressure onto anybody, it is a natural evolution that if you hang around with enough vegans long enough, there's a pretty good chance you're gonna turn vegan, and that's what happens. Yeah, so that's a good point, Adam, and that's our stance on it. So there is no requirement, but I personally strongly recommend it. Hopefully most of you are anyway. Any other questions? Anything to do with Sea Shepherd or the oceans or anything? No? Okay, well listen, if you do have any questions and you want to talk, we're out of time anyway, but if you do want to come and talk to us, we really like it, like the opportunity to reach out to you. So we're just down in the main hall there. Come and see us. We've got some amazing merchandise as well, which is how our money comes in. Okay.